where we put the real in real estate. And of course, I've got my co-pilot Justin Landon, MetroTech CEO, with us this afternoon. And then a very special guest. We've got Jarrod Grasso from NAR, the Senior Vice President of Industry Relations. Jarrod, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Ashley and Justin. Looking forward to our conversation.
That's awesome. So, Jarrod, you are new to the NAR family. There's been a lot of changes going on. So maybe give us a little bit of a background, because you're not a novice in the organized real estate space. So maybe where you came from and what this new position at NAR looked like for you.
Sure. So real quick, my background, I started in 1999 with the New Jersey Realtors. I joined the association as our government affairs director, worked my way up to CEO in 2008, and then decided to take on this new challenge just this past March. So 26 years of sitting in the audience with my colleagues like Justin and Ashley, with our volunteer leaders, listening to NAR kind of preach to us, talk to us, but not talk with us. And that's really the focus of my job, is to make sure that we're having real conversations with our members and getting the feedback, the genuine feedback of where we are as an organization, how we can do better to service our members. So that's the industry relations team, basically the concept that Nakia pitched to me back in December when she approached me about coming on board. And I can honestly tell you, and Justin, you and I have had this conversation. When I was first approached, I said to myself, no, I'm happy in New Jersey, and I could stay in New Jersey and probably finish out my career in New Jersey. But I truly wanted to be a part of the solution, the fix of NAR and the new look of NAR. And as Nakia, as our CEO, is a true leader, a true business mind, I wanted to be part of her team as we help to rebuild the organization that has been so good to me, my family, to my members over the years. So no, I'm excited to be part of it, and I joined in March.
Jarrod, to follow up on that just a little bit, I'd love you to comment. So when you came into NAR, it was as a local association CEO, to me, it was a real demarcation of, we're bringing somebody into the organization that's been in the line of fire, at a state association, and then in addition to bringing you on board, Nakia also brought on the brokerage team, Nakia Pittman McGriff and Sherry,
Yep.
and has now brought on David Sharon to support in the MLS, and you brought on Michelle Holland. Can you just talk through a little bit like that change in focus for NAR to bring people into the organization who have actually been in the trenches, in the locals, at the MLSs, and more importantly, in the brokerage community?
No, thank you, Justin. You're right. And this is what was shocking to me, right? And we've, like we said, we've been around for a while, but 118-year organization, that's how long we've been around. But we've never had an industry relations team, a connector to the foundation of the organization, our state and local associations, bringing on Sherry Chris to help with our brokerage messaging and connections with our brokers. Never happened before. So, I mean, to rebuild the team and really what helped guide Nakia in her decision making in how to rebuild it is that she was out there listening to the membership. We've been surveying the members, making sure that we're trying to listen to their needs and their wants. And this is a big disconnect of the organization. And so having Sherry there to help us reconnect with our brokerage firms. I mean, everybody knows Sherry Chris. I was fortunate enough to have her working in New Jersey under Realogy and then Anywhere. So I've known Sherry for a long time in my former CEO role. Because to me, as a CEO of a state association, I had to make sure that I was always communicating with my large brokers or all my brokers within the state of New Jersey. And I either used direct lines of communication, or I made sure that my local associations were communicating with our brokers. Not everybody was doing that, especially not NAR. NAR was not communicating well with our state and locals and not our brokers. So this new team that we have, we talked about Sherry, Nakia Pittman McGriff. Nakia is also part of my small medium brokerage firm outreach, so that she's reaching out to our state and local associations, helping us identify those small, medium brokers and making sure that we're communicating better with them. Michelle Holan, who's a former CEO of a local association, bringing her perspective so that we know how to engage better with our constituency. And that's really what it's about. It's about engaging better and communicating better with the constituency or the membership of the National Association.
No, I love that. So let's talk about that. And let's talk about, you just met with about a group of brokers. We saw the headlines and the different things that they were asking of NAR and demanding transparency around, a myriad of items. You guys just met with them in Chicago. So maybe give us a little understanding of where their concerns and critiques were and what your feelings are on that ongoing dialogue with that group of brokers.
So it wasn't all the brokers that were left out of the settlement, but there was the members that were there, the brokers that were there were part of that. They were not part of the settlement. And they were a small group. We invited just a very targeted group to sit down and talk to us in Chicago. We're going to have more of these conversations moving forward with our brokerage community. So I want to be very clear. So if a broker is saying, why wasn't I called? You will be called most likely in the near future. But anyway, I think the biggest takeaway that I had in those conversations, or let me start with one of the concerns that they had, is that they want us to be a more nimble organization. They want us to be a more responsive organization. And I think that we all agree that that is something that we definitely need to do, right? We need to make sure that we are communicating better and making sure that we are part of those discussions collectively and listening to the brokers. I think that from a governance standpoint, they would love to see change within our governance structure. What that change looks like will probably be dictated or will be dictated in how we move forward from our strategic plan. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, Ashley, because we're going to talk about our strategic plan.
Of course.
But the other thing that was the light bulb moment for me, sitting in the room with the brokers and hearing the honest and open discussion and dialogue, is that we need to demonstrate the value of the association membership specifically. And one instance, just one instance I'm going to give you that I feel comfortable sharing is RPR, the Realtor Property Resource. We had our team talking about RPR, and one of the brokers raised their hand and said, wait a minute, this is something that's available to me. And they're like, yes, we've had this for X amount of years. And the light bulb moment was like, well, we were going to try to create this ourselves. But this RPR, this resource, which is only available to realtors, and I want to emphasize, only available to realtor members, is something that we have created to make sure that we raise the bar of professionalism to help our members communicate the value that they bring to the transaction. And only the realtor member has access to that. So that was like that light bulb moment, like where a broker's like, I want this, but they didn't realize that they actually had it at their fingertips all along. And what does that show you, Ashley? It shows you that we haven't done a good job as a national association communicating the value of what we're offering to not only our brokers, but to our general members. And that's what we have to fix.
Go ahead, Justin.
What I think the challenge with that, Jarrod, that I think is lost sometimes, and I talk to our MLS, our regional MLS about this a lot too. At the end of the day, the organization has the closest relationship to the member is the local association. They get more communication from us. They see us most often. And so when you're talking about driving product like RPR or any member benefit that NAR is driving through it, ultimately, sure, NAR can send out their emails, but it has to be a broad buy-in across the entire ecosystem of state, local, and national. That's the strength of our three-way agreement, which I'm sure we'll touch on at some point during this conversation. I know you've been talking a lot about it as you go around the country, but I think as we engage in these dialogue, the brokers aren't hearing it, but that also means probably that the local associations haven't necessarily heard it or heard it 10 years ago, but haven't had it reiterated consistently as we've seen leadership change. As you well know, our leadership changes every year. So it's that constant re-education process that's such a challenge for us inside organized real estate.
But Justin, that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is that, my job, my role, industry relations team, is making sure that we're always having those conversations with you all in the field, and maybe providing greater assets to you in the sense that collateral that you could use to help emphasize the value of the organization, and having that unified collective voice when we're doing that collateral that you could push out to your members to show the value of that three-way agreement, but also what we're offering as an organization.
Well, and so I'm going to throw this out here because obviously I'm the practitioner on the call, and I will say myself and many of my cohorts are guilty of not being avid readers. Jarrod, I know this comes as a shock to you. Part of that is the way I've always been wired. Right? I'm an auditory learner. I love podcasts. I love doing things like this, and audiobooks and everything else. But so the collateral, even if people are reading it, are they retaining it? Are they really putting that connective tissue together? And I think what we've done a good job of in the recent tenure with Justin being here and us redeveloping our value proposition as a local association is, we're sending out the communications, we're pushing all that information out, but let's put our money where our mouth is. And when we're actually educating them on the front lines, whether it's a forum or a summit or, some sort of educational component, we've tried to do a really good job of bringing in those member benefits as a part of that programming. We've had RPR, I think, the last couple of events that we've had, and really bringing that into the ecosystem in real time has been really useful. And that's for our own suite of member benefits that we've unveiled. We really have to do a better job of going out into the wild, right? Not just letting them come into our building, but out there into the community and saying, yeah, it's our fault you don't know about this, but let me enlighten you and let me show you all the things that you can do to unlock with your membership.
Yeah, and Ashley, I think today is a perfect example of something that NAR needs to do. And what do I mean by that? The real talk, what we're doing right here, right now. Mm-hmm. I think, and I know that we have a strategy moving forward that we want to do our own podcast moving forward as NAR, because we have to make sure that we're connecting with the members everywhere they want to be connected with the organization, right? We can't just assume, because Ashley, you said this, so I'm quoting you back.
It's fine. You can quote me back. That's fine.
The members don't sometimes like to read everything. And I understand that. And I dealt with that as a former state executive. And I know that they don't always have the time to read everything. So if they're sitting in their car, why not do exactly what Justin's doing here? What you're doing here, Ashley, is give them a podcast so that they could hear the top issues and stuff like that. I know Shannon and her team already has their own podcast going on there, which is fantastic. But I think as an organization as a whole, we also have to provide that avenue so that people have the opportunity to hear messaging and not just rely on just what we're sending out in email, because people are inundated with emails.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much. And I think, that's a great segue into the disruption and also opportunity in real estate in the industry in general, right? We're seeing technology and AI, change that landscape of consuming information daily, is pivoting. But this is still the people that want to be able to see who they're talking to or listen to who they're talking to. This format is not going to go to the wayside, especially when you can do like 2.0 speed, like I like to do, Jarrod, if somebody's talking too slow. So I might do that as well. But we've done this actually for over almost 5.5 years. We have done this podcast, and it started in 2020 because we needed to meet our members where they were. We had contracts changes. Addenda were being changed, obviously practices through the COVID era, through the era. And that's what we used to meet our members where they were. And in 5.5 years, it still remains the most successful communication tool that we have to our membership. And there's a lot of sweat equity that goes into it, but it's not cost prohibitive for us to have these type of outlets. And I think that's what the amazing part. And we have Shania Ragsdale, who's on right now, who said hello. She's one of our avid listeners. We have so many people that I will tell you, even through our big merger conversation, when we were going into the brokerage community and ones that are a little bit more disconnected from the association, they've seen this. And that's proof in the pudding that people will consume different types of information. So, you need any help, Jarrod, you just let me know. But I think that's a great vehicle for NAR going forward to get that message out.
No, and kudos to your team, honestly. And this is where NAR was blind for those 5 years where you guys are taking this opportunity to use technology to communicate. NAR wasn't. And now we're awake to it, and we have to do stuff like this because we really want to engage with our members. So hopefully you will see a different, I know, I'm just not saying hopefully, you will see a different NAR moving forward.
So I don't want to jump ahead. I had to step out a little bit during the pre-show due to technical difficulties, which that's the way it goes sometimes. But I didn't want to miss the opportunity because we mentioned it a minute ago, that this concept of the three-way agreement. And obviously we are coming up on dues billing season, or many associations are already in dues billing season. This time last year, on the back of the settlement, obviously the rhetoric around people considering what life would look like if they weren't part of NAR anymore was much higher than it is today. And I think that's a credit to the work that Nakia and the team that she's put together, you being a huge part of that, has done to sort of at least give people some confidence in the organization from where we were a year ago. But I know as you've gone around and you guys are doing broker summits all over the country, and I've seen you give presentations on the three-way agreement, how do you feel like the sentiment is now going into this dues billing season among the members? And what are you trying to pass on to members as you're out there talking about why the three-way agreement is so important, and why being a part of local, state, and national, for those who don't know what three-way agreement is being part of all three, what's resonating for you when you're out there talking to people about it?
I think the biggest thing that's resonating with me is that the members, yes, I think that the conversation, let's go back to your opening statement, Justin. Yes, the members last year at this time were struggling to see value with the three-way agreement. I think that we've done a good job of educating them of that value. And to me, what's that value, Justin, right? The way I always looked at it is that when I was the CEO in New Jersey, I knew that I had not only my 60,000 plus realtor membership here in the state of New Jersey, but I also had the 1.5 million members backing me up. And what does that mean? I had the resources available to me as a state or even as a local association when it comes to issues mobilization funds, when it comes to legal action funds, when it comes to independent expenditure funds. So I knew that NAR, no matter what I was doing in New Jersey, if it was good for the membership in the home buying community, then I knew that NAR was going to be there to back me up. And the resources were always made available to me. And that's what we're trying to do, is convey how that three-way agreement is so useful. And I like to say this, Justin, there's many places that elect their dog catcher. Today's dog catcher is tomorrow's U.S. Senator. And the true uniqueness of our organization is that ecosystem that we've built. We start that relationship with that dog catcher when they're initially elected, and we maintain that relationship as they become mayor, as they become an assemblyman, as they become a U.S. senator. And there is no other organization, and I can promise you that. And Justin, if you can name that other organization, I would love for you to point them out. No other organization in the country that has that type of ecosystem, that has that relationship, that has built that relationship with that elected official from day one to the day that they become a U.S. senator, and maintain that friendship and that relationship. So that is why we are so successful in our lobbying efforts. And that's why Shannon McGann and her team are so good at what they do, because they have the backing of our local associations and our state associations. What Shannon does on the Capitol is not her alone doing it. It's in consultation with our state and local realtors, right? Because you all are boots on the ground helping us carry that message on. And when they're in Congress debating this, they want to hear from their constituents. Their constituents are realtors, and they want to make sure that they're making their constituency happy. Because I know today's an election day here in New Jersey, and they are relying on, the messaging that we gave to them, making sure that they understand about home ownership. They understand the impacts of certain legislation that will impact home ownership. So back to your question, Justin, the three-way agreement to me is truly the foundation, who we are and why we are such a unique organization. And I would hate to see that ever get diluted, plain and simple.
Well, I think what you've what you've said there, I think is really important. We're very unique among other organizations like us to have that relationship. And I guarantee you, if I went and asked the national CEO of any trade association if they too wish they could have a model like we have, the answer would be yes, because of the power it drives for us. And I think, that's why it's so important for us to maintain these healthy relationships, and for our members and brokerage community to really understand the value they get from all three levels. I have sometimes felt in my career that our local dues at $127, that sometimes I feel like I have the expectation of trying to drive $500 in dues value out of $127, because that's what the members look and touch. But there's so much, to your point. I love that phrasing you used, and I'm going to steal it, that we have 37,000 members in Metro Tex, but I have 150,000 in the state who have our back, and 1.5 million nationwide who have our back. Because I think that's a really compelling analogy to that strength in numbers mentality, not just from we always talk that you can walk into a senator's office and say, I've got 1.5 million members behind us. And that sort of means something, but I think it means more to me to know when I'm on the ground working an issue that I've got a bunch of like-minded people that are willing to back me up. And I think that's one of the best analogies I've heard, for the three-way agreement. So thank you.
No, and I think that's great. I want to kind of challenge it a little bit, not because I think it's inherently wrong, but perception is greater than reality, right? I mean, we all know, because we've been embedded in this, infrastructure internally with organized real estate now for several years. I was on the outside once, poo-pooing and demonizing what we were doing. I wasn't a major investor. I've been doing this, forever. I've been doing this for over 20 years. It wasn't until Justin and I talked about this the other day, the direct correlation to going through our leadership program is what transfers into, creating the new future of major investors who really understand what we do as an industry from the advocacy standpoint. But because from an outsider that's not embedded into that, how do we change the perception? Because just in politics in general, you can't open a social app or, some sort of headline without seeing, corrupt politicians on both sides, all of these narratives and everything else. People are fatigued on the political side, but yet I know advocacy is different. So how do we cut through that noise when everybody has, political fatigue, and really get them to see what we do from fighting bad policy and legislation and promoting good policy and legislation?
Well, first and foremost, I don't want to go into politics in New Jersey, but if you want to talk about corruption, just look up one of our past U.S. senators. Anyway, so we'll leave it at that. But all I'm going to say is that from my standpoint, I look at the legislative accomplishments. So Ashley, when people are saying like, okay, but what does it really do for me? What does that lobbying or advocacy really do for me? Let's just take a look in a snapshot in time right now. Shannon McGann's team, under the tax reform legislation, were able to pull off some major victories that A, keep us in business, B, are direct correlation to helping home ownership, and C, making sure that the ecosystem thrives. And let's talk about a couple of the wins in the tax reform legislation.
Sure.
There's a permanent extension of the lower individual tax rate. There's a permanent qualified business income deduction. Okay. There's a temporary 5-year quadrupling of the state and local tax deduction, the SALT, right? The SALT. New Jersey, Texas, we need the SALT tax, right? We need to make sure that stays in place. Protection for SALT for businesses, make sure businesses have the same protections under the tax code. 1031 like-kind exchanges, making sure people can invest and reinvest without being taxed on monies that they are profiting on the sale of their commercial properties, right? And then last but not least, the permanent extension of the mortgage interest deduction. Right there alone, when a member says to me, what's the value in what you're doing, or what's the value in getting engaged and supporting RPAC, that's right there. That's their business. It keeps them in business. It keeps them thriving. It keeps making sure that people could afford to live in these high-cost states, plain and simple.
As a fellow New Jerseyan, I hear you. And now I'm the great state of Texas. We would welcome you too, Jarrod, by the way. So
this is Texas. We're always recruiting. It's even since the Rick Perry days, the doors have been open, and we are bringing as many people in as we possibly can. So,
listen, to my new role, I've been in Texas this year, I think 4 times. 4 times, and I visit a lot of airports in Texas. But you guys are always very welcoming, and I do enjoy going down there. So,
well, we appreciate that. Okay, let's talk about what's going on next week. And you just told me that we've all been saying it wrong, Jarrod. It is not the NAR NXT conference. It's the next conference, correct?
It is the next conference. Don't say now when we go to the May meetings, it is RLM. It's not RILM, but it's RLM. So this is NXT is next. So next week, Houston. I hope that many of your members will be there because this is a transformative convention. And what do I mean by that? We are going to be looking in mainly the full discussion. There's other committee meetings going on, so I'm not taking away from the other committee meetings.
Sure.
But the main focus for us as an executive team is the strategic plan. So we have created a strategic plan that is going to lead us and guide us as an organization for the next 3 years.
Okay.
This strategic plan, Ashley, is nothing that I've seen before, in the sense that I have sat on NAR's strategic planning committee for over the years. I've done my own strategic plans in New Jersey. And a lot of times you create a plan, and yes, you revisit it and you discuss it, but there's no real business strategy built into it, right?
Sure.
And you put it on a website, your members see that it's there, and it creates a vision for the organization. This strat plan that we're hopefully going to adopt next week is truly a business-focused business plan that is not a set it and forget it plan.
Okay.
We've been out in the field. We've surveyed well over 100,000 former and current realtor members, right? Where that includes brokerages and people who've been in the organization, who have not been in the organization, that have helped kind of create that strategic plan. And then our volunteer leaders, the strategic plan members, took that insight and that feedback to create the vision for the organization. What's really amazing about the strat plan is something that the average member is not going to see. And what do I mean by that? There are these things called tear sheets built into the strategic plan that make sure that we stay on target. We being the senior vice presidents of the organization, we will have metrics that we must meet on a quarterly basis, and that we are going to be graded upon on a quarterly basis to make sure that we are hitting our benchmarks, moving the organization forward. So currently there's 27, I think 26, 27 tear sheets built into the strat plan. Each one of them is tied to a senior vice president as the head, but it also makes sure that we're bringing down the silos of the organization. And that's one of the biggest things. And people always ask me, like, what's the biggest shocking thing that I've learned since I joined the association in March, is the amount of silos that we had. That the one silo was not communicating with the other silo. So if Justin reached out to the government affairs department, there was no connectivity to John Waclowski's department, or what is now John Waclowski's department in the legal side. We've taken down the silos so that we're all communicating. The senior VPs now are also all communicating with each other on a daily basis. So part of the strat plan is that, we have key metrics that we must meet quarterly, monthly basis. And I'm telling you, I'm excited to be a part of it because it truly is the future of the organization. It helps us bring us in line with the business needs and wants, making sure that the realtor stays the center of the transaction. I know that we like to use that term, but we're going to truly show that from a business standpoint moving forward.
No, that's pretty exciting. I love that. I mean, because at least there's something also to point back to, Jarrod, that so many times this flat piece of paper that we all get we've done plenty of those strategic planning sessions. And then to your point, it just kind of lives in infamy. It's not necessarily an ongoing driver for the organization, unfortunately, on a daily basis. But to hear that those accountability measures and those KPIs have been built in, I mean, I think that's, for me, if nobody gets anything out of today's, Real Talk, that's huge. And that shows that NAR truly is putting their money where their mouth is as an organization to create more transparency and trust and accountability for that organization going forward. I think that's amazing. Justin?
Well, and I think, Jarrod, as you talk about coming to an organization with silos, and I think I raised my eyebrows when you say, which I think Ashley picked up on, which is
just a little.
We had quite a bit of that here at Metro Tex as well when I first arrived, and we're still working through some of that. But I think what all of our associations have gone through over the last 10 years, and this is true of every single realtor association in the nation, I think, and certainly even more so over the last 20 years, we grew very quickly. It wasn't that long ago that the Realtor Association was not a massive business organization that it is today. The number of members that have grown over the last 10 years is not quite exponential, but pretty darn close to it. So the revenue behind our businesses, the complexity of our businesses has all really amplified in the last 10 years. And we weren't equipped as an organization at any level to deal with that level of growth and that level of complexity. And we're playing catch up. We are, we fell behind, and that's not just NAR. It's state associations, it's local associations. We fell behind, and we have a new generation of leaders coming in. And I think that's not just on the staff side. It's also on the volunteer side that are coming in with a different business minded orientation from where the association was more of just a trade group. It's becoming a trade group and a business organization. And I think we're all a little late to that game because it's been that way for a while. But I think we're going to see a lot of that pivoting in the years ahead. And I'm, for one, am very much here for it and excited for it.
And Justin, let's go back to Ashley's first question when she asked me about one of the takeaways from that brokerage meeting that we had a couple of weeks ago. Is the transparency that there's an expectation of transparency, right? Mm-hmm. And truly showing the value. And by the way, I want to be very clear, when they're saying that they want more transparency, it's not just us, the National Association of Realtors. It's all three levels.
Yep.
Because they're hearing it from their members, right? Their agents that are paying the dues also. So it's not just the brokerage firm that's saying, or the broker who's saying, okay, show me the value. It's their agents pushing them mm-hmm. to carry that message forward for them and on their behalf to all three levels. So that's the one thing. That's another thing that I took away from this is that we, the three levels of the organization, must be in unison and singing from the same choir sheet, because we're all being assessed. We're all being evaluated. Right. And Justin, I know you're providing great levels of service down at the Metro Texas Association, but there are others that might not be. And we're all being evaluated and we're all being looked at.
And any one of us that think that we're good, we're wrong. I mean, you can say, I think we're doing a good job, but but we can always do better, right? We should always be aspiring to do better. And I think that's a mindset that is becoming more pervasive within the industry, where I think I don't want to say we took our members for granted, but we did take things for granted, right? And so I think we can acknowledge that the rate of change that we're having to deal with is not going to slow down. Like, this is the new normal. And we got to get on. We're here for the ride, right? And I think we're excited to do the work. And I think that's what I'm really excited about when I look at our change in, we have a new CEO at Texas Realtors, Mike Barnett, who I know you know very well. And I think the world of Mike. I'm excited about the new leadership at NAR. I think we've got an opportunity as an industry to really unify and come together and do what's right for the country. Because when we look around the world, despite all of this chaos internally and the legal challenges and the dissatisfaction from the brokerage community, we don't want to miss the forest for the trees, which is every other country in the world would take what we have in a heartbeat and rebuild organized real estate as we have it, whole cloth, right? No questions asked. And I think we don't want to miss that.
Yeah. And I think, that's we said before, I mean, look, we're feeling economic pressures. I mean, North Texas, DFW is still the epicenter of growth and was cited as one of the best real estate market in 2025. Sure doesn't feel that way, but in comparison to our neighbors in other areas, and we have one of our amazing affiliates who chimed in, by the way, when I said you can migrate to Texas at any time. She's one of our amazing movers. She owns a moving company, Francie Beal. So she said she knows a mover, Jarrod, if that ever comes about. But I I think that's what we miss too at the same time when we feel that economic pressure from there not being enough stimulation within the real estate industry, which we're all feeling right now. That downward pressure throughout our communities is huge because that's impacting so many different trades and affiliates and our realtor members and everything in between. And then, of course, what do? We try to control what we can. And so in the midst of a post-settlement, world, and then in the midst of really a down, real estate market, or one that we thought was getting to more balance, but is still, I like to call it abusive, Jarrod, when somebody asks me how it is. This is an abusive market. And so, but that also starts kicking up the dust at the association level, because what can we do when we know that our members are hurting? They need more information to disseminate to their clients. They need to understand. We obviously have Lawrence and his team at NAR to be able to provide forecasting, from facts and not feelings and things of that nature. But I know we're feeling that, at the local level. And we have a progressive organization now. And when I say that, we're still hearing from around the country, and I'd be interested to hear from your perspective. So in that three-way agreement, we're embodying the fact that we support the three-way agreement because we think it's the best thing for everybody. But we didn't like the golden handcuffs aspect of it. And so we've always been open MLS membership. You could be a non-realtor and subscribe to our regional MLS. You can also get key services through Metrotex without doing that. So you can, as far as your actual utility that you would need to do to transact between those two things, you can get that. Now, forms are still part of the state association. So that's a little different there. But throughout the country, are you seeing, people look at that lens of, we want to be in the three-way agreement and let's create sound policy, progressive policy around that, instead of maybe keeping people tethered intentionally through that?
I think that the conversation has shifted in the past year, where people are saying that they want to make sure that they could identify the value of the membership. Sure, if individuals want to go the non-member route, they'll have access to MLS, like you're saying. They'll have key components that could get them to the transaction. The problem is that they might not have all the tools that they actually need to get them there. And I think that's the differentiator between the membership and the non-member real estate licensee. So yes, there are those conversations, but I think that the conversations have been open and honest over the last year, last 6-7 months that I've been around, that I think that we've shifted those conversations to the value of the organization, and working with the three levels to make sure that we're identifying the value. And so I know we're in due season right now. We actually just did a script, Justin. I don't know if you had a chance to see it. We released it, I believe it was last week, to help our local associations so that when they get that member who calls, who's not happy with paying the dues, that they have an easy way to answer some of the universal questions that they might be getting. And that's Michelle Holan working with our comms team to create that, because she's bringing that local AE perspective to us, to help you, Justin, in the field, and your staff in the field.
You mentioned your comms team, and I had a chance to meet some of your new comms leaders at whatever the last conference we were together at. I can't remember which one that was. Maybe in DC. You mentioned in the pre-show, just we talked a little bit about your team earlier, but obviously you're just one business unit inside of the larger NAR family. Over the last couple of months or year, you've seen a tremendous change in the NAR team broadly. You want to just share some of those numbers that have turned over, and kind of what the focus is, from Nakia's hiring perspective?
No, thank you, Justin. You're absolutely right. A third of our workforce has changed. So a third of the workforce that was the former NAR is different today than it was 2 years ago, a year ago. And the real key is the senior vice president team that Nakia, which is part of Nakia's advisory group, right? It's her true team. Let's just go over, we know Shannon McGann, she was there. She's a carryover, and rightfully so. She's amazing. Lawrence Yoon. Ashley, you brought up Lawrence and his team and the Metro statistic reports that they're doing, that dashboard that they're providing and stuff like that. What a great member resource that they're doing, the value that they bring. Mark Birschbach from Second Century Ventures, to making sure that we have the business transaction tools for our members to help them in their day-to-day business. So that's Mark's focus. He's one of our EVPs, but he's a senior VP, elevated to EVP now. John Waklowski, though he is new from a chief counsel perspective, he actually worked with the National Association for almost 8 years, probably a little more than 8 years. And he was more tied to Shannon's team from a legal perspective. But prior to joining us, he was partners in a law firm in DC. So he has that true legal background and vision that we needed because he worked in the field prior to joining NAR from a legal perspective. So when he got elevated to chief counsel, it was a no-brainer. He knew what he was doing, right? Sure. He knew what a law team and how to rebuild a law team. We've got trademark lawyers now. We've got other attorneys that he's bringing in to make sure that we round out the team from his perspective, making sure we have everything covered from NAR's perspective. Now let's talk about our education department. You have Elizabeth Rano, who's just recently joining us. She comes from RealPage, which is
that's here. That the headquarters is right in our backyard.
There you go. So we got her from RealPage. So she has her perspective of what they were offering from a real estate education component. And she's built out a team with experts on event planning and making sure that we have an events team that truly elevates the experience, not only for the agents, but for our brokers, right? So when they're there on scene at our conventions. Our chief HR officer, Sharon White, she's worked for Fortune 500 companies. Like, she's bringing a different business mindset in how we're running our internal operations and hiring, making sure that she identifies and hires the right people for the right positions. Our chief financial officer, Matt Sinadella. Matt comes from, again, outside organizations, but also he was the CFO for the Women's Tennis Association. We got some feedback or something going on there.
That could be my 3 dogs wailing in their kennels, Jarrod. That's probably what that is for the moment. So go ahead.
And I'll finish up. So I talked about Matt, and last but not least, and this is the one thing that we were really hurting on, and I'm so happy to have him here. And that is Bennett Richardson. Bennett is our senior vice president of marketing and communications. He's built out a new comms team. He brings with him years at Google, Politico. He actually helped co-found an app, a dating app, believe it or not. So like, he's got a business mindset, and he's really truly helping reevaluate and bring out a different communication strategy to the organization, trying to make sure that we're proactive and not reactive when it comes to the media. So that's like the new team, the new vision, right? So you've got this whole new group. So it's not the old NAR. It's a whole new team that Nakia has brought in to help bring us to the next level.
Can I tell you, as you were reading all of their backgrounds and everything else, like, it might be, besides your tear sheets, because I thought that was pretty cool too. But that might be one of the most exciting things that I've really absorbed in regards to those changes. I've listened to Nakia and a lot of the rest of the team in silos, right? But really understanding all of those different departments and levers we have to pull at the National Association, and seeing the people that you guys are bringing in, that's pretty big. I mean, that alone, if we could get like a graphic, made of that and their backgrounds, I actually would show a really progressive lens of what Nakia and you guys are doing at that level, redeveloping your team.
I'm sure I'll actually have Bennett put it together. So
yeah, well, I think a huge part of that is, at the end of it, we're in the relationship business. Like, we say that all the time. That's how our members perceive us. The staff should never be out of sight, out of mind for the membership. They need to know who these people are and understand the work they're doing on their behalf. I think telling the stories of the people running the organization is incredibly powerful. And I don't think that's always been true of the National Association, where they get, hidden in Chicago or hidden in DC. And really, other than our chief lobbyist or head of government affairs. You just don't see them that often other than CEO. And I think it's exciting to put faces to those folks serving in those roles. And I think I heard you say that we might have a realtorsmingle.com coming maybe from the team, experience.
I'll leave that up to Bennett and maybe his business mindset on that.
Only thing I know is I heard the tennis association, and I immediately went to how do we get more pickleball into the National Association of Realtors.
Wait a minute. Pickleball and tennis are two different sports.
They're not. I know they are, but we got a lot of former tennis people that are transitioning into pickleball. So I can't really not take an opportunity, as I am horrifically addicted and will be playing after this, Jarrod. So
very nice.
Nonetheless, I'll be playing in Houston. What was that, Justin?
Most of our executive committee meetings have a background of the noise of the pickleball because Ashley's, taking a quick break in between games for an executive committee call. So
not in a meeting, a call. So it's a little bit
not in the middle of a meeting, a call. Yeah.
Yes, but I will be putting a game together while we're in Houston, Jarrod. So we always try to do that and
I'll have my stuff. Let's play. I'm in.
Okay.
Let's
do you really play pickleball?
I just started playing. It's fun. It's fun. I prefer the golf course over a pickleball court, but yes, I will play.
Okay. Well, I'm going to hold you to that. So we've got about 15 minutes left. Justin, I would love, you've obviously been a great asset to us here at the local level, really taking a lot of this progressive lens that Jarrod's talking about, that Nakia has brought a refresh in and that from your perspective, how does that tie in together? How can we create this three-way, not agreement, but this relationship at the local, state, national? And maybe that's part of it. It's the phrasing, right? It's the three-way agreement. And like it sounds like shackles. Instead of it being, we have this tiered relationship at a local, state, and national level, to your point, Jarrod, and Justin, to yours, of the backing of the numbers and everything else. What can we do as the local association to really drive what NAR is doing and tie it together?
I mean, look, I think at the base level, it's a partnership. That's how we need to think about it. And part of it is communication, but also a part of it is really having an open dialogue. When Jarrod came on board, I don't know, Jarrod might describe it a little differently than I would, but I reached out to Jarrod pretty quickly and said, we need to talk. Not because I was very frustrated at the time, about my ability to get in front of what was happening at NAR, as the at the time, the fifth largest realtor association in the country, local association. Now I think the fourth. We moved up one spot.
3.5.
Let's try. 3.5. We'll take 3.5. Deanna, I can't wait to tell Deanna we're third, but it may be a little bit. I was a little frustrated and finally having someone at NAR, number one, who I know and have a relationship with. And that subsequently has grown since Jarrod came on board. And I think that's so important that we have that connective, you use that term a lot, Ashley, that connective tissue between the organizations. I think that's the first start. I think since Jarrod's come on board, he's done a lot of focus groups, a lot of connecting with people that are on, he talks about what they're doing in the brokerage community, but he's also doing it with my colleagues, with our counterparts at the multiple listing services, to build that feedback loop. And Nakia refers to like flywheels a fair bit. I don't know if that's still in the speech, but she loves a good flywheel. But it's that circular connection effect that I think has been lost. Mm-hmm. We've been operating as three organizations, local, state, and national, in a silo, just as you described the staff when you came to NAR. And we would cross over when we had to intentionally, right? When we're asking for a grant or when we're asking for some support, but it took an act, right? Where I think more now there's this active sense of listening between the two organizations. Jarrod has pioneered these listening sessions at every conference where he gets together the different size organizations, small, medium, and large, and puts us in a room together and says, what are we missing? And it's as simple. I mean, you remember that, Ashley, when I first came on board at Metrotex, what's the first thing I did? I went out to our brokers and I said, what are we missing? And we got good feedback from that we then launched product and services around that. And I think mirroring that at national and state is what's happening now. You saw Mike Barnett, as he took over, launching focus groups across the state. It's a huge first step. Now, how do we take an RPR and figure out how to really build a partnership with it? It's not this piece of technology sitting up here on a shelf, but it's something that we're all leveraging together. There's opportunity there, and which is why I'm very excited that I was recently offered a position on the RPR advisory board, and I accepted. So that's great, because I think those dialogues are going to be really important for a piece of technology that NAR is spending multiple millions of dollars on every year. And if you look at total investment, it's huge. Like we've got to weaponize that thing. And I use the word weaponize in a really positive way.
Yeah, $13 of your dues dollars is going towards funding RPR, making sure that it's a valuable resource for the members right there. So that's our investment as an organization in RPR, because we see it as a valuable tool that's going to help the members get to their next transaction. And to me, the term I like to use is collaboration when I talk about the local and the state associations, because we have to collaborate, because it's truly, to me, it's a partnership in this thing. And if I'm failing, I mean the NAR now, failing my locals, then I'm failing the organization. So I want to make sure that we're there as a resource and collaborating with them so that they feel heard, and not only heard, but we're responding to their needs. So.
And I think that's great. To your point, Justin, when you were going out into the brokerage community, because Justin came and said, all right, Ashley, what do you think we're missing? What do they want? All of these other things. And I rolled off, a handful of stuff that I said, if we could do this tomorrow, we'd improve on our favorable rating. And he was like, really? Do they really care about that much? But he went in there, and it's like every other one was mimicking, what we were doing, and ultimately getting that feedback and then implementing that direct feedback into progress built that trust with the brokerage community. And in turn, we would not have been able to have a successful local merger of a 27,000 member organization and a 10,000 member organization, and be able to blend those two together without rebuilding that trust as a true indispensable resource to the brokerage community in multiple different ways. And I think our reliance just purely on the things that you have to have, such as the MLS access and the key access and continuing education, was an archaic model when there's so much technology and resources and the buying power of our two organizations, right? I think that's what I think about when you go, there's 1.5 million. Well, the buying power of that, even at 37,000, we have more buying power on behalf of our members than most of the brokerages do in our community. And so is that something that they're wanting our assistance with? It's okay to shift that a little bit, but that's what we've been able to do here. And it sounds like, Jarrod, you guys are doing the exact same thing, at the national level. And that's really exciting.
No, and I don't want to get too repetitive, but it's an exciting time only because we've been pushed, right, as an organization, because people questioned us, and they should question us.
Sure.
Now it's time for us to deliver. And if we're not going to deliver, then we shouldn't be the National Association of Realtors, and we should not be in partnership and collaborating with our locals, because they could probably do it without us if we're not bringing the value. And I truly believe that we are bringing the value back to the members, and hopefully, partners like Justin and our colleagues out there in the field are going to help us elevate that, and the members are going to see it. They really will.
The most exciting message or branding that I've heard out of NAR is the phrase you used a moment ago. And I watched Nakia over the last 2 years on stage kind of workshop her way toward this messaging, but I love it. We're all about helping our members get to their next transaction. Mm-hmm. I think that is such a clear value proposition and such a clear value statement that as we line up our services, and that to me is a lineup that we can take from the very top all the way to the smallest association or smallest MLS in the country. If that's our purpose, and I think it is a clarity of purpose that I have rarely heard echoed in the Realtor Association. I mean, what's the purpose of the Realtor Association? Well, do you have 45 minutes for me to go through our 17 pillars, right? But at the end of the day, if what we're about is getting our members to their next transaction, I love that clearness of purpose, and I'm really excited about that strategic plan driving behind that idea of helping our members accomplish that. I think it's by far and away the clearest vision we've ever had.
Yeah, and it's about allowing them to thrive in their day-to-day business, right, Justin? Making sure that they truly see that value from us, from a unified organization, the full federation. They see that value.
Well, and it's something that I've said a plethora of times, because none of us are perfect sitting here on this stream as we're doing this, but you can be critical and supportive at the same time. We can be, or reflective and supportive, whatever you want to say with the connotation there. And we are charged to do that. We have to continuously reflect on the decisions and the progress that we're making to make sure that it's okay. Just because we implemented something and we see it's not working, it's okay to pivot. It's okay to take a different direction. And so that's why, I mean, sometimes it feels like a browbeating, and I'm sure for Justin, who has had this uphill battle with merging those two organizations and doing all of those things, but we still have those conversations where it's okay. We can be critical of some of the things that we're not nailing, but super supportive of the direction we're going. And we are on the right path, and we're going to continue to get this thing moving in the right direction. And Jarrod, that's the sentiment that you've continued to bring on, is if we're not doing what we need to do, then we shouldn't be NAR, and we can be critical of what we're doing and have massive progress. So I appreciate those honest feedbacks there. Now, with 5 minutes left, what can we expect at next week?
Let's start with, we talked about the strat plan. I think that you're going to see a new business strategy coming out of the National Association of Realtors, greater collaboration. I'll just focus on what I plan on doing next week with our AEs. We're going to have our usual breakout assemblies so that we're having direct one-on-one conversations. And Justin touched upon this earlier. I walk into that room saying, I don't have an agenda today. I'm here to hear what you guys are hearing in the field. And that's that conversation that has to happen. From a member standpoint, I think that from the conversations you're going to hear in the hallways and the hall chatter is going to be NAR's back on track, and they're moving in the right direction. And the proof is in the pudding, and that's truly going to be that strat plan, that business plan. And you're going to hear it in the leadership scoop. Will be the most in-depth conversation about the strat plan. The town hall, that has been a scripted event over the years. Justin, right? Pretty scripted, those town hall sessions. No more. We actually have questions that were given to us from the associations and from the executives and from the leaderships of the different the different associations that we're going to address on stage. But then we're going to make sure that we leave time for Q&A from the audience. Something that hasn't happened. I don't remember last time it's happened, Justin, but we're going to make sure, and Ashley, because I don't know the last time that's happened. So you're going to have real conversations. You're going to have a real organization that's trying to address your issues in real time. So I think that's the biggest takeaway I hope to see out of NAR and from the member experience, that they're going to feel heard, listened to, and responded to.
No, that's amazing. We just dropped the registration in for anybody that's listening. It's in Texas, guys. A nice clean 4-hour drive if you want to see it firsthand. I would not fly right now after all Houston Hobby and DFW are not doing great with those TSA lines. So I was
Ashley, I was checking it today. Everything looks just fine. So I know it's a moment in time, but today, if you went on to look, it was good today. So
okay,
all right.
We'll see. I control my destiny, Jarrod. I drive. Yes. Yeah. We're driving. So let us know if we need to pick you up on the way if anything happens.
You might, but yeah. I'll let you know if I get diverted someplace.
Yeah, that's great. Justin, anything you want to leave us with before we cut off?
I just want to say thank you to Jarrod. Thank you to the NAR team. I think the authenticity and the willingness to come into spaces like this. I think Kevin Sears really led from the front with that, in that regard, willing to go on stage, willing to answer tough questions in an unscripted format. Again, these are huge shifts. And, so thank you to Jarrod for coming on and being willing to do this. And honestly, doing it all over the country. I mean, you're a road warrior at this point. So thanks for what you're doing, and looking forward to seeing you in person in just a few weeks.
Yeah. 1 week. 1 week.
1 week.
Okay, next week.
1 week. And again, I'll just say thank you. And it's the one thing I definitely want to say to all of our members is thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for allowing us to have a voice again and giving us the opportunity to reconnect with you. So I appreciate this opportunity, and I look forward to having more of those. I love Texas, so bring me down anytime you want.
Okay, but we're going to have to play pickleball, and then we got to get Justin to play. Okay.
Okay. Deal.
Sounds good. All right, guys. Well, we will see you in Houston next week. Thank you for joining us for truly Real Talk with the new and real NAR and Jarrod Grasso. Thank you so much, Jarrod, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.